So what are the different steps to select the right methodology? The first thing is you have to define the research question. You have to be able to categorize it, whether your research question is essentially descriptive, that addresses what happens with the environment and where it happens with the environment. Descriptive researches are often to do with surveys and then mapping and then classification. So these are the kind of descriptive researches that we talk about. And then explanatory, wherein we explain why a certain thing is happening with the environment, or how it is happening. So these are case studies, often modeling is involved. All the climate change researches are essentially modeling based, they are essentially explanatory. We try to explain that these are the causal factors in order to in order for a specific climate change to be driven, whether positive or a negative, or whether it is radiative forcings, and all this. Also experimental researches, right? Experimental researches also include qualitative and quantitative. Then predictive, what if. So these are simulation models, or you're using machine learning approaches in order to be able to predict what is going to happen in future. Right, so you have to define the research question first. Often this research question has to be two objectives. So yet again, the objectives, right? Match objectives with data. If you have already set your objective, your research question is ready. Now you have to match your objectives with the data. You have to see whether the data that you require is already available, or whether you will have to derive it, whether you will have to produce your own data. When the data is already available, we call it secondary data, somebody else's data that we use. But if we have to generate our data, then we call it primary data. Whether this primary data is available or not, what, how do you get primary data? Field experimentation, also some surveys and things like that, that will bring new data which was earlier not existing. You have generated that data. Also whether you have access to the already available data, right? So if you want to use maybe some government data, some government has already conducted some surveys, and that data, whether you have access to it, whether you will be able to bring it. So that is also important. And then you have to consider the ethical constraints. If a community is participating, then you have to make sure that you take their consent and things like that. Yes, correct, like FSI data, yes, correct. Then choose tools and techniques. Next is, if you have already identified which kind of data is important to you, now you have to choose which tools and which techniques you will use. Whether your techniques are essentially going to be traditional, wherein you will collect field samples, some laboratory experiments you are going to do, and some statistical analysis you are going to do, that is just in terms of percentage and things like that, no? So your data will essentially come in the form of tables, or maybe some traditional graphs, right? Or maybe text description, or describing the samples, or describing the statistical data. So whether it is going to be like that, or whether it is going to be thorough with what is the trend now. So what is the trend now? The trend now is using GIS data. Trend is using remotely sensitive satellite data to study the spatial analysis, using artificial intelligence and machine learning models to predict what might happen with the environment in future. So these are the state of the art methods. These are something that is going on now. It is no more a story of past. It is happening now in present. Any good journal that you take up, any Elsevier journal, if you are in environment, in environmental research, life sciences or earth sciences, what you can do is just go ahead and look out at the different papers that are very relevant to your study. You will realize that they are using machine learning, they are using remotely sensed data, satellite data, different types of satellite data they are using, and things like that. Besides that, citizen science platform for participatory data. Now there are these platforms that are available. I have given a link to this participatory sciences link over here, you can refer to that. So there are these platforms, where government itself, or individuals themselves put out a survey that anybody can go and address, and then that data is made available for researchers, no matter at what corner of the world you lie. So if you find some such data that is coming from such participatory platforms, it is relevant to your study, then why not, you can go ahead, use them. So there are such platforms as well coming up, right? So you have to identify a platform which is dedicated to the kind of data that you are in need of. That's the only question, where do I find? And once you have the data, you can use it. Besides that, you also have to assess the feasibility, whether you have the time to take up the kind of methodology and the tools and techniques that you have selected or not, whether you already have the skills. If you don't have the skills, where do you get the skills from? Maybe from courses, maybe by using the manuals for those techniques and methods, or maybe for using a software you don't really know how to learn it, or maybe that there is no course available for it, so maybe using a manual that is available along with that particular software, or things like that. Besides that, if you know that the data is available, but then to access it, you need some funding. For example, some satellite data, some high resolution satellite image, whether you have funding to bring it to yourself or not, and accessibility, whether you can access it, because some of the data sets are very very confidential only to European countries. You can get them only there, you cannot use them being on Indian subcontinent. Or some data that is only available for the US states, you don't really have them for your country or for the environment that you are looking at. So in this scenario, you also have to look at the kind of data that is being required and its feasibility, that is, whether the required time is there, you possess the skills or not, or whether you can get the skills or not, whether enough funding is available or not, and whether you can access the kind of data that is required in order to take up a particular technique. That is your methodology, correct? The MES methodology is not the most complex one. Often we think that, okay, this particular researcher or the worker has used a wonderful method like machine learning, using machine learning in susceptibility studies and something like that, but I don't really know how to do it, correct? No, that is a problem. I know that it is a complex and very, what I should say, very impressive, a handsome method. But then, what is important is, it is not necessary that the methodology has to be complex. It is more important that the methodology that you use is going to yield relevant data, based on which you will then generalize your findings um, for the study that you did, right? So often what happens is that whenever we try to study something, we don't study the entire environment, we study a small part of it, and then we make our findings, we derive our findings, and then we try to generalize it to the bigger environment, and then see whether they are applicable or not. If they are applicable, well and good. If they are not applicable, then why I could not generalize, why my environment was different than the environment out there. So these are the kind of things that we have to look at. The best methodology is not the most complex one, so don't be fancied by the big methodologies that are out there. Find the best one for you, which is feasible and which is going to yield the best results for you, and stick to it. It's the most practical for your questions and resource. The best methodology is what? It is the one which is most practical for your question to be answered, and also that you have to have the resources. So this is the link that will take you to one of such platforms. So if you go here, you will be understanding as to what exactly I'm talking about when I say citizen science platforms for participatory data. And you will be able to search other platforms like eBird. Many of you all are belonging to life sciences or ecology, I see. So eBird, Atlas, and something like that. No, I am not, I might not really be aware of these things. No, so these are the platforms where some participatory data is available, where many people come together and generate data. Okay, just give me a thumbs up if you have heard of this particular website. A website in the sense of participatory platform, right? Yeah. Okay, so the best practices while you are choosing a methodology, clearly explain why you chose the method. You have to defend why you chose a given method, because you are serious about the method that you have chosen. You cannot let somebody overpower you with the methodology that you have chosen. So you bring your strength into deciding which methodology you are going to use. You have to be very confident, and not just superficially, because somebody might be genuinely trying to tell you that the methodology that you have chosen is not really nice, but then you should know that yes, what I have chosen is nice, and at the same time nice in the sense the most defensive one, and that if somebody else is trying to correct you, you should be open enough to even look at their perspective. And if they have something good for you in their store, then why not just grab it, right? Then justify with references. You refer to, you don't just fight with somebody who is not agreeing with your methodology. Rather, you give them references that this person has used them in the similar environment to solve the similar problem. They have found relevant results, that is why I'm using it. So back it up with some references. The methodologies can evolve as time passes through your research. As your research progresses, often methodologies evolve. So you keep that space for your research methodology to breathe and to grow and to evolve as well. This is a dynamic process. Research is a dynamic process. Your objectives, you should prioritize that they don't change, correct? But methodology, because methodology is the path that you take to the objective, the path may change. If there's a cliff, you won't jump over it, isn't it? You have to survive that cliff. So what you will do, you will go around, climb down the slope wherever it is possible, and then climb up the valley to reach your objective. So your path has to be flexible. You should keep that space for your methodology to breathe and to evolve and to grow, such that it becomes, you also grow enough confidence in it that you will defend it with much more attachment. I'm not talking about emotional attachment, I'm essentially talking about the backing up from your references. So don't chase fancy methods, like we have decided earlier. If they don't fit your question, leave them. So you have to find out, is your question descriptive? The kind of research that you are doing, is it descriptive, or is it explanatory, or is it predictive? That's the first step when it comes to selecting your method. Now, the message I want to give here is methodology is not one size fits all. Somebody could be studying the same environment that you are studying, only that it is geographically at a different place. But that doesn't mean that the methodology that they have used you are also going to use. Not one size fits all, that's not the policy that we are going to follow. There might be some modification that will be required in order to customize the methodology to find your answer. It must fit your question, the data, and the context. Modern research often blends traditional approaches with new AI or artificial intelligence or GIS tools for deeper insights. Also, to evaluate your environment back in past how it was. So often, their GIS as well helps, or remotely sensed data as well helps.